What is up, everyone, and welcome back to another video. My name is Anthony Rusumano. I am a health coach, which means I coach in nutrition, exercise, lifestyle, many other health related things. And for today's video, we are going to be talking about real food versus processed food versus ultra processed food. With real processed or ultra processed food, it really just comes down to two things. Number one, it comes down to nutrient density, and then it also comes down to absorption and digestion of these foods. So to start off, we are going to begin with ultra processed foods. I'm not trying to call out M&Ms. This is what it was in our pantry, so I just wanted to use that as an example. However, it is a perfect example of an ultra processed food. So like I said, we were talking about nutrient density and we were talking about the absorption and digestion. Well, with ultra processed foods, talking about nutrient density, the micronutrients, you'll notice is if you look at the nutrition label on M&Ms or any other candies or ultra processed foods, you will see that we have macronutrients, right? We have proteins, we have carbs, we have fats that all equal into a certain amount of calories. However, if you look at the micronutrients, which micronutrients in a nutrition label are usually under the macronutrients, you can see in this example for the M&Ms, 0% vitamin D, 2% calcium, 2% iron, 0% potassium, right? The percent of daily value of micronutrients in these ultra processed foods is minimal, if any. So that is the key difference. While you are eating these foods, you are only getting calories without any micronutrients. And micronutrients are absolutely vital for the way our bodies function. We need them. So that is a big difference when it comes to nutrient density of these ultra processed foods. When it comes to digestion and absorption of these ultra processed foods, this is where another problem comes in. Because they are heavily processed and they are not real food, our guts don't really know how to digest them appropriately. So it takes much longer to break down these foods. And at the same time, when we're talking about absorption, what's being absorbed? Well, there's no micronutrients, there's no vitamins and minerals to be absorbed. So it is quite literally just absorbing that added sugar, those added fats, those processed sugars, processed fats, again, which we don't need because we're gonna have a spike in our blood sugar, spike in our insulin levels. If you're not active, then you're going to cause insulin sensitivity, a whole host of problems that we don't want. So that is the main reason from nutrient density and the absorption and digestion of these ultra processed foods, why they are so unhealthy. Second, we are going to jump into processed foods. Okay, so this is the next level up from ultra processed foods. However, this is where I really want to clear things up. Many people deem all processed foods as bad. Personally, I deem all ultra processed foods as bad for the reason I just went over. However, processed foods are not what you may think they are. Processed foods, unfortunately, are most of the foods in our grocery stores, in our world today, but it doesn't mean it's bad, right? So some examples of some processed foods. We have, number one, protein powder or any supplements. Supplements are processed foods. However, in my opinion, they are healthy processed foods. For example, protein powder can help you hit your protein goals with minimal ingredients, and there are protein powders and there are other supplement companies that are making very good quality products. So it's a processed food, but in my opinion, supplements are a healthy processed food. Another one, oats. In my opinion, a healthy food. The internet's going to argue that, but again, there's one ingredient in oats. Again, though, a processed food. A healthy processed food. Rice is another one. And then also cheese and dairy is another processed food. But like I said, with all of these foods, this does not mean that they are necessarily unhealthy. We have to process these foods in some form of way in order to get them onto the market or into the grocery stores, right? We have to take protein from a milk in order to make a whey protein powder. We have to take the husk off of rice in order to make it white rice. I talked about in that last video, so you can check that out. We make cheese from milk of a cow as well, so we have to process it in some way. Same thing with oats, same thing with many of these processed foods. It does not mean they're unhealthy. It just means that they have to go through some form of processing. Now, going off of those two things that we were touching on, nutrient density and the digestion and absorption. Well, nutrient density, you can still have nutrients in these processed foods. Some companies will actually put synthetic vitamins and minerals into these foods. Not horrible, just not great. However, if you look at some of these processed foods, they will have some nutrient density, right? So for example, one of my favorite processed foods is yogurt or even cottage cheese. Absolutely love these, one of my daily staples. Yogurt still has probiotics in it from the live cultures, which are really good for gut health, right? It's going to provide you nutrient value so that just because it's processed does not mean it's super unhealthy. Now, when we talk about the digestion and absorption of these foods, well, if you look at the scale from real food to ultra processed food, with processed food being in the middle, we're right in the middle in the sense that these foods are going to take a little bit longer than real food, however, not as long as ultra processed food. So because it's a little processed, but processed from real food, our gut has an idea, our body has an idea of what these are. So it has a better opportunity of breaking these down, digesting them, and absorbing any of the nutrients within them. So we have ultra processed food with little nutrient density and really taking a long time to digest and absorb. We have processed foods that are processed from real foods, where some of them will still have a lot of nutrients in them, and then also they do not take as long to digest and absorb. So that is processed food. And finally, we have real whole food. These foods are types of foods that we can get in its raw form, right? For example, I have eggs here. I have honey. There are animal proteins like animal meats. You have fruits, veggies. These are foods that you can get from the earth. Take it from there. And again, when I say from the earth, still coming from a grocery store or something like that. But you can take it in its whole form, not put it through any processing, any machinery, any mechanical work, and you have this food item. This is what I mean by real or whole foods. The reason why real or whole foods are the best, going off of those two things, nutrient density and digestion and absorption, because above all, real foods have a high amount of nutrient density, which means the macronutrients, the protein, carbs, and fats, are going to be healthy sources of each of those macros that lead into a healthy source of calories. And then you get into the micronutrients where it really makes a difference. Real whole foods are very rich in micronutrients, in vitamins and minerals. This is where we are going to be able to get close to our daily needs of these vitamins and minerals. For example, fruits and veggies have a very high content of micronutrients. When we eat these foods, like I said, the digestion process starts right in our mouth and it is going to finish in our gut, and it's going to be a very smooth and quick process. And when we do digest them, the absorption, not only are we going to be absorbing these very good and key nutrients, but the absorption is going to be much cleaner as well. Our body knows how to deal with one, while our body does not know how to deal with the other. So from a nutrient density, micronutrients, and from a digestion and absorption standpoint, real and whole foods are going to be king above all. So that is the main difference between real food, processed foods, and ultra processed foods. So personally, like I said, real whole foods as the majority, throwing in some healthy processed foods, and I really try to limit the ultra processed foods as much as I can. That is, again, just because I'm a little extreme as a health coach. I'm very far into my nutrition journey at this point. So I'm at a point where I do exclude all ultra processed foods. However, if you're just getting started, try to implement them very incrementally in very small portions, and you can still enjoy them as well. You just want the majority of your diet to be real foods while also adding in some of these healthy processed foods. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that clears things up between whole food, real food, processed food, and ultra processed food. If there's any other nutrition related topics that you want me to talk about, put in the comments below as well. If you've been enjoying this nutrition education related content, please subscribe. That would mean the world to me, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.